nutraMetrix. This is one of my favorite topics because this topic has to do with getting products actually into the patient's hands, and the fortune is always in the follow-up. So we're going to talk about the follow-up. So let's just start with how many people started by tasting a product, trying a product. Most people start by loving and trying products. And if you didn't, just know statistically, whenever we ask this question as a company, it always seems time and time again that people start with having a love of product. And we have so many different types of products as a product broker, but one of our novel products is isotonics, and isotonics is so different and novel and unique, and you do have to taste it. A lot of people say that they have to taste it. Judith is saying she is one of these that started, she loved product. And so the purpose here today is to take the love of product and bring it through your office with your staff, with your patients who are just your extended family community, so they love product as well. And so then that way, when you go ahead and you explain isotonics, you explain isotonic delivery, it makes it a little bit easier. So I'm going to talk about today in this really brief training, I'm going to talk about a patient tasting. I'm going to talk about a patient tasting, sorry about that, a patient tasting in the office as an event. I'm going to talk about a patient tasting in maybe an exam type situation when you have a one-on-one patient come in. I'm also going to talk about the difference between patient tastings and trial size marketing, and then we'll talk about the follow-up when it comes to that. So it's really important that you understand the foundations of nutraMetrix. I liked the last webinar that Brandy Murphy did specifically about implementation. This patient tasting happens during the implementation. So you may have had your nutraMetrix consultant do something like an event with you or a patient tasting or something before you opened up your account as a part of that trial period, but typically this happens in the implementation. So if you haven't done it as a part of your implementation, I suggest that you do. I suggest that you have that as something that you're thinking about moving forward, because we've absolutely trained and talked with nutraMetrix consultants about patient tasting as well. So this is something that is, a hot topic because a lot of us do it. I mean, think about, the last time that you went somewhere. I don't have a Costco membership or a BJ's membership, but I know when I go to Trader Joe's, one of my favorite things about Trader Joe's, if you're lucky enough to have a Trader Joe's in your area, I just kind of beeline right for the back, because what do they have back there? Samples, right? A lot of people will say with, their Costco membership, they'll go around lunchtime on a weekend and they get a whole smorgasbord, right, of samples and tasting. And yeah, I've totally bought the brand new, salsa flavor because I tried it and I loved it. And, sometimes it's just, I call it the threshold rule. When you can get someone over the threshold of your office, this is what typically the threshold rule is. It's so much easier barrier to entry to get them back over that threshold again and again and again. Our brain likes to not use a lot of power. It likes to keep us safe. It likes to keep us doing things that we already know how to do because it doesn't take as much brain power. So I already know how to get to that office. I already know where that is. I can do that again. Same thing when it comes to buying something new. I already know how it works. I know what it's going to taste like. I know how to mix it up. I know where to buy it from. I'm going to keep myself safe. I'm going to, use the least amount of energy, which is a safety tactic, fight or flight. I'm going to stay safe. I can do that again. So if you can get a patient to try something for the first time, you'll see, you will get reorders. You will see this. It's just what happens. So really exciting that you're here and you're learning about this, because you already know that this is a tactic that works. You already know that. And I don't want to call it a tactic like it's sleazy, but listen, with my Trader Joe's example and my Costco, example. I also want to reference, I'm going to share my screen right now, that we do have, if you don't have an NC, or your NC is someone who's already on your staff, I want to also show you that we do have a document for you. It's a PDF all about the patient tasting, that this is a strategy. And the reason that you're doing this is to build rapport, understand practice flow, understand, and I'll tell you a little bit about why a nutraMetrix consultant is also wanting to have a patient tasting in your office. So we'll talk about that. And a checklist for supplies that you might need. So this is a great document. This is something that should be in your implementation binder. But let's talk about the different ways that you can have a patient tasting. So your nutraMetrix consultant may say to you, when are the busiest days in your practice? And that's when I'd like to set up a patient tasting. And this might be, they do not treat or diagnose or act in any way as, you know, a representative of your practice. They are there to represent the nutraMetrix brand and the products, just the same way when the, you know, person who sells the new tortilla chips in the Whole Foods, they don't work for Whole Foods. They can't tell you, you know, where to find peanut butter. They don't know what shelf that's in. They just know everything about their tortillas and how to sell them and the prices and maybe a coupon code. And this is going to be the same thing. And so your nutraMetrix consultant could sit there. I recommend that they, you know, bring everything that's branded. I like to mix up maybe a big batch. Let's say we're going to do daily essentials. We might do beauty blend. We might do bromelain. You know, I typically will tell them to pick just 1 or 2 products. I like doing things, you know, if I'm going to do 2, I might do trim tea, hot or cold, or trim tea versus trim cafe. I like everything branded. I'm not going to sit there and have someone drink 8, 4, even 2 ounces of product. I typically collect these. I collect them for all sorts of reasons. My kids love to play with these. They're really great paint cups, and they're great to, if you're going to have some trail mix and you feel like you're going to eat the whole bag, I just fill up a little bit. Portion control, very helpful. But they're also really great to put out for, you know, a little shot glasses as a little tasting. I'll typically give people not even up to the 2 ounce line, typically about 1 ounce. That's what I'm going to do. And so I'll give them about 1 ounce to go ahead and taste. And so this is what I typically use, because I like that it says nutraMetrix right on there. So again, we're keeping this nice and branded. And so I will fill them up, and I don't make a whole lot at a time. Isotonics is usually good for about 1 hour, hour and a half. Otherwise, then all the, you know, sediments that make it so it's isotonic kind of tend to like settle to the bottom. It's not quite as effervescent. Other products like aloe might last a little bit longer. You know, you might have to have ice to keep things chilled, or, you know, go back and forth from the staff lounge, taking things out of the fridge if there's something like an aloe, or maybe you're tasting some nutrition shakes and you need some ice or something like that because you want them ice cold. How I like my nutrition shakes. So this is going to be a great time to be able to expose patients to isotonics. You might naturally do open houses, fairs, events with your practice anyways. Maybe you do a holiday open house and you're going to ask your nutraMetrix consultant to come and set up a table and do some sampling there. You might go to the, you know, community downtown festival that you have, and you always have a table. You're a chiropractor. You do, you know, some free analysis there, and you might want to have your nutraMetrix consultant come along. So it might not be in the practice. It might be somewhere out of the practice or with another event. When you go through implementation and we talk about the normal flow of the patients, they come to the office, they check in, they're walked back, you have the exam, you do your treatment, and then they go to check out. If maybe you have recommended isotonics to them, they might go and talk to a wellness coordinator or someone else on their way to check out. There might be a taste testing done there. I have seen that. I have seen, bags of OPC3 chews. I have seen chewable probiotics, things that make sense to do a taste testing with. If you're going to pair some products, I'd say we're talking about detox. You want everyone to try the fiber powder, but Oxygen Extreme is something that you also want to talk about. Totally appropriate if you have a bottle of Oxygen Extreme right there on the table. Not something you really need to take or taste when it's in a tablet or a pill or one of our capsules. We don't really need to go ahead and taste that. Maybe people want to see the product. Maybe they want to see the omega-3 or they want to see what it looks like, but I don't know if we necessarily need to taste those. So all different ways. I mean, we can do it as a vendor on a busy day, as a part of an event. We can do this as part of the normal process. We can, do this as, like just a little bowl of, why don't you try an OPC3 chew? There's all different ways we can do patient tasting. Totally appropriate. Patient tasting is different than patient sampling. Patient sampling, I typically sample, this is what I teach my offices to do, is to have samples when you want to gain customer share. So you have a patient and they're a loyal purchaser of magnesium, and you say, here, why don't you try a turn down packet? It's going to be a complimentary product. You might also like this product. They really love to take their OPC3, beauty blend and skin health formula, and you're going to say, you might like the women's health blend. Here, why don't you try this? That's going to be sampling. It's not taste testing. Sampling is very different. Again, that doesn't make the threshold rule because we send it home. How many times, I find samples of things at the bottom of my purse. Sometimes they just go in the garbage. And I don't think that's what you want to happen. So I always find when you mix it and you give it to someone and you ask them to taste it, they're going to taste it much different than sampling. Much different also than what you might hear called trial size marketing. Trial size marketing has its own follow-up formula, its own psychology and rationale, where it's a promotion with the company and you're allowed to give so many out in exchange for agreeing to watch some videos, give feedback, and answer questions over the next 3 days. Much different trial size marketing than sampling or a patient taste testing. So I want you to understand that these are 3 different ways. They all work well and in different ways to sell more product, to move more product, to, get some customer share, but you do these in very different ways. It's really, really important. And what I want you to do is practice next time you are in a situation with taste testing is that you have somewhere where you're collecting information from the patient. You're collecting their name, you're collecting their email address, and you're following up. Really important to follow up within 24 hours. You might send a flyer. You should also have flyers at the table. You should give everyone a flyer with the label of what they're sampling. That makes a lot of sense. But you also should follow up with a flyer, follow up with a video, follow up with a how-to, and of course a link with how to order. You might make everyone a complimentary account who went ahead and taste tested. So in case they get a little nosy and Googling on the internet, they'll know where to find the product or they'll be attached to the health professional. It's totally great. But I think the follow-up is really important to be able to do that. I'm a huge proponent of email marketing, having email lists, engaging in dialogue, engaging in conversation with patients, especially, I think that that's an even exchange to say, listen, write this down, or I'll do things like prizes, where I'll say, do you like it hot or do you like it cold with trim tea? And, just go ahead and fill this out and vote. And, if you vote here today, we're actually going to pull a prize at the end of the day and someone will win a free box of trim tea. Something like that. Someone might even just win a week's worth of trim tea and you'll give them 7 samples. That it doesn't have to be a whole box. You can work within your own budget. That's totally fine. But when you make it fun and dynamic, you give them a reason to pick up a pen, write down their email address. Really important. Very, very important. And so, these are ways, and if you haven't scheduled a patient tasting or talked to your nutraMetrix consultant about how you can incorporate tasting into your office, then I hope that you do so as soon as possible, because it's a really effective strategy for implementation.